What's up, YouTube? It's Joe Catchpolia sitting on the couch making some money investing in fractional real estate online as usual. Today I've got quite a few different things I want to talk about. Gonna give you a little bit of an update on a couple things on Lofty. One, my properties that are being managed by YHome. I'll get a little bit more into that. Their staking. But then also I want to talk about something kind of strange that happened on Groundfloor. They sent out something to kind of warn us about it, but it just happened, and I want to point it out. I'm still very happy with that platform, but it is interesting to see the direction that it's going. And then I want to give you a little update on Landa. That's one of the apps that I decided to take my money back off of immediately after I put it on. And it took me a while to get it out. But one of the your fellow listeners or watchers, I don't know, somebody else who was watching the channel pointed out to me a new feature that they've added that makes me think that they're probably having at least as much trouble as what I thought they were initially. But so I'll get into all that shortly. So starting off, the Y home properties. What are these? So, on Lofty, where I own several properties, and this is if you're not familiar, if you're new to the show, I don't know if the show, my channel, I don't know, whatever this is. Um, you might not know it's a platform where you can buy small pieces of real estate deals that other people. There's a couple different formats. The older ones were really just all everybody that owned a piece voted, and we used third-party property managers, and there's still several like that. Newer ones have this model where somebody brought the property to the platform and they have to maintain a certain amount of equity. And so they sort of act as the liaison between, the property owners and the real world. They might not be the property manager. They might just interact with them, or they may be the property manager. And so a lot of the older ones that came with the first model are really struggling, and several of them have been taken over by this company, YHome Property Management or YHome Nursing. I don't know. They just go by YHome, but I think there's for some reason I feel like nursing might be in the title, which is a little strange. But it's somebody, the guy who runs it is named Cal. He seems perfectly nice guy. He's somewhat active in the Discord, although for the number of properties he's managing, I think he has a hard time keeping up with all the different channels. Um, a lot of people seem to really like what he's doing and want him to take over more properties. Um, yeah, I have not had that experience yet. The couple properties that I have that he's taken over are just not doing well, and that's what I want to just point out today. And they weren't doing well before he took over, but it seems I don't know. I'll go into each one. But this is the same person. If you remember, if you did watch the video I did about the property with the address, it was on Olive Street. I'm not sure. I'll bring it up on the marketplace, see if I can find it. Um, yeah, there it is, right there. So this one where they had quite a few problems. The price dipped, very low. It seems like maybe they've gotten it back on track. But it was the one where he had, switched it to an Airbnb, and that it wasn't permitted for that, and he had to go to court. And it seems like he's been able to work through that. But if you saw my video on that, I was a little bit hesitant about this style. And so I think I'm sort of just having that same issue with the ones that he runs. So this is one I had bought that I think I bought it right before he took it over. And I think that vote happened. Yeah, Y Home Nursing LLC is actually the company. Everyone just calls it Home though. Um, I think I bought it and then he took it over, or the vote had already happened. I'm not 100% positive, but there's a tenant in place. It's been in place the whole time. We collected a small amount of rent before he took it over, and then the part of the reason I think people really like his strategy is he's doing what's called what he calls his profit first strategy, where a lot of these properties, if they've had problems, there's an empty operating reserve or sometimes even a negative one. And so typically almost all of the rent, or maybe all the rent that's collected, gets paid into that operating reserve, and so there's nothing that's paid out to the properties. But what he wants to do is have it that as long as rent's collected, there's always something being paid out, right? And it's a very small amount when he first takes over. It's 1/12 of the monthly cash flow. But then he has after 3 months, he does what he calls stabilizes the property, and then we do a vote to find out how much is going to be distributed. But the way he's able to achieve this is that he just basically um, uses he gives a loan to the entity for any repairs that need to be done, and I think he actually has a line of credit set up for that. But so I think it's really that it's changing the model of how the lending works and the capital structure. Um, but he also seems to have done a good job of turning around some of the properties that I've looked at of his. It just hasn't happened yet for the ones that have. But this is one that it just sort of bothered me because it was they're bringing in rent, and we got a note that said we're going to get our first distribution in December. Didn't happen. Um, I'm not sure why. There was no update why. I asked in the Discord. I didn't get any response. I just asked again today. Hopefully, we get one. Um, but for having taken this over, so far back in time, and having a tenant in place, and it seems like maybe they had to catch up on their rent. They did multiple payments in November. Their October payment was paid. I'm not sure what happened with December yet because this is the last update we have on the property. Um, that's a little disturbing, right? Like it doesn't make a lot of sense that we're not getting any sort of updates. When my understanding was, when he takes over, it's supposed to be we're supposed to be getting a little bit more info. And the other thing is, we don't actually vote on anything that he does on the property. I mean, he just gets to sort of do whatever he wants. And to a certain extent, I think that's good when you have some really troubled properties. Like this is another one that I own a little bit of that he I've just been trying to sell it. I just listed it, sold one of the tokens. I didn't buy very many of them to begin with, so it's not a huge deal for me. Um, but there've been a lot of the owners of other tokens that I own have been talking about trying to get him to take over their additional properties. And so that's why I'm sharing this. I'm hoping some other people are watching that are already on here. Maybe you can share your experience. Maybe you can point to some properties that have just really done well under his management. Uh, eh, you know, or if you've experienced the same thing as me too, I'd like to hear that as well. Um, One thing that I'm a little worried about is, the whole profit first system sounds really great, and not having to pay the operating reserve. But I hope that's not all we're getting out of it. So this is one. He posted some pictures right away when he took it over. There's all kinds of problems with the property, and then just basically said, "I'm going to fix it." And I said, "Hey, do you have any details?" He's like, "Oh, well, when we figure it all out, we'll give you the details." Um, didn't really get any other than he said he's putting the security system in. And he's like, "Oh, well, once I'm done with all the work, I'll let you know what it was." And I don't know, that just sort of rubs me the wrong way as someone who is a part owner of this property. The whole setup for Lofty in general has typically been that we get to make some decisions together, and even if we're not going to make the decisions together, I'd like to have clarity on what they're actually doing with the property before it gets done, right? I mean, because the under the current setup, it seems he could do a huge renovation, and we're just on the hook for that cost as a loan, to through the structure that I was describing before, where he's using a line of credit to clean that to fix it up. So I don't know. Hopefully, both of these will get some updates soon. And he did take over like 20 something properties recently, and so up until today, I've really just been giving him the benefit of the doubt that he's trying to like work through it. But he posted in the Discord today, we're 95% done with everything. and ready to take on new properties. And that's what really worried me because unless maybe I got really unlucky with the two that I have, but if he thinks this is all done, I don't know, that worried me a little bit. So I wanted to mention it. If there's other people that have some either similar experience, or I'd really like to hear examples of which ones he's taken over that have done well. Hopefully that'd make me feel a little bit better. um, but either way, I'd like to hear about it. um, the other thing I want to talk about is how staking's going. If you remember what this is, it's when you take your property tokens that you've already bought on Lofty, lend them onto the lend them into the liquidity pools, and you get some rewards. So a couple of things about this. It looks like, oh, I've lent a whole bunch of money to this, right? Like, almost $20,000, but I really haven't. What it does, I've lent, so it double counts basically. Let's see. Um, this is all I have in this in Lofty altogether. So I haven't put a ton of money on here yet. Still just trying to, experiment. Just like we talked about, I'm buying little pieces of all these properties so far. Um, but so you can see this is the total value of the tokens that I have, and so I've basically lent about half of them into the liquidity pools. Um, I'd like to lend more, but I don't know, because I think there's relatively limited downside, but I wanted to give you a little bit. There's also not a ton of upside that I've received so far, right? So far I've only made 158 bucks. Um, I haven't had this money in here for a very long time, but probably on average more than 2 months, maybe 3 months, right? So like if you wanted to annualize returns, you'd multiply these by, if it's 3 months, you'd multiply these by four. And that's probably about a fair thing to do. So, okay, made about 4%, but then this is in addition to the money that I'm making from the properties themselves. So that's sort of, the idea that maybe it's kind of free money, but really it's not, because a couple of things happen. So one is that, um, so for example, ones that are paying out, like I've got 90 Madison, it pays out rent every month. Well, the liquidity pool is unbalanced, meaning they've sold more uh, property tokens out of the pool than what were in it, or not not sold more than what were in it, but there's just an imbalance right now in the pool. Basically, the price is higher than what I bought in at, and so um, well, I think that's not why the imbalance happens. And this is one of the things you can just see. I don't fully grasp all the inner workings of how the pools work. But what I do know is I end up getting less rent from this property than I would otherwise. The same thing with Andover, um, and Ridgetop. All of these I've gotten pretty decent, percent rewards, because again, if you can multiply this by, three, somewhere around three times that, because to annualize it. And that's not a bad return on top of what I'm already getting on the property, but I've lost out on some. All the ones I've done math on so far, though, I'm actually ahead so far, meaning that my staking rewards have paid me more than what I've lost in potential rent or an additional rent. But one of the reasons that this number is so low, or that even though it's a low yield, I'm pretty happy with it, is that most of these tokens that I've lent into the pool are ones that I bought with no yield anyway, right? They're properties that I bought. Like I've got a decent amount of Odom in here. This is one that it's not paying out anything. I've gotten, small amount of rewards, less than 1%, and this is, again, maybe around 3% yield. Um, but I'm really just buying this property because of the deep discount of it, that it is that the token price is relative to the price of the asset. So this is one that I just think this is kind of extra money. Now, one of the things that I'm not really sure how this all works out in the end is when if we sell this property in real life, um, once the pool winds down, am I going to be hurt by having so many of my tokens in the pool? I actually have quite a few more tokens of this one that aren't in the pool because, um, And I'll show you why. It is already maxed out, right? So I have another 212 tokens of it that I could put in, but the liquidity pool isn't big enough. So I don't know. I wanted to talk about that a little bit. I had mentioned, I had started doing this and then just hadn't really gotten an update. Oh, look, I got another 82 cents in rewards. That brings my rewards today up to like $2 or something, right? So it's not a huge amount. But like I said, most of the rewards that I get on here, I don't know why I can't say rewards today, but most of the ones that I get on here are just extra money, right? Like I'm not, it's not a big part of my strategy. And as long as I don't end up getting too hurt, like getting money stuck in here. So for example, this Walsh property, that money is stuck because again, the pool is imbalanced. And so like I have $157 in there, but if I try to take it out, it's going to give me this huge penalty to take it out. Um, yeah, so I really only will receive $70 because I'll pay an $87 penalty. That's one of the things that I'm not really sure. It's really difficult to ascertain on the front end what that looks like, what that penalty will look like at the time that I want to take the money out. And so I'm really only putting stuff in here that I think I'm going to lock it up until the pool winds down. And that happens when the property is sold in real life. But one of the things that I've noticed is that at least in one of the liquidity pools I see got wound down. The people that staked the USDC, they staked on the money side, not on the token side. They actually lost money on the whole deal, um, which was a little discouraging. But the property token holders seem to work out okay, and I think that that will be the case on all the ones that I'm working on trying to push for a sale. And then some of the other ones, I might just end up stuck in those for a little bit longer than I want to. But if it turns out that they, start making money, and then it also might hurt my yield on those a little bit, right? But in the meantime, it feels a lot like free money. But I just want to make sure it's clear it's not completely free. Um, So that's really all about the lofty properties. Like I said, I've got a little bit of ground floor update, and then I'll talk some, just one small thing about Landa. I know it's a little bit different format today. Usually I have one topic, but I felt like each of these was too small to just use a whole day's video on. But it is, I think, interesting. So ground floor had sent me this, three of my LROs, which is the small pieces of loans, are going to get paid off. So we got this notice, if you don't remember what ground floor is, this is a platform where you can buy small pieces of loans on, they're basically hard money loans. They're for fix and flips or construction loans. Excuse me. And you go on their platform, you buy little pieces of those loans, you get paid interest, you hold the loan until it matures. But one of the things they had mentioned like a month ago, or maybe just a couple of weeks ago, that they had this big bond financing that they were doing, and basically they're trying to attract institutional investors. And so one of the things that they did uh, with that money that they brought in is pay off some of these LROs. And you didn't really get to choose; they just did it, right? And so, I get that email. Oh, we're going to do this with 3 year things. Um, let's see. And so let's see, it went into my repayments, and you can see that yep, those three paid off. I got paid interest. There was nothing wrong with it, right? That wasn't a problem. But what worried me a little bit when I signed into here today, and you can see in the email, it says, you could reinvest in the Flywheel portfolio, LROs, or other products, right? You can see they start with saying the flywheel portfolio. I think I'm worried that they're going to try to just push everyone into that portfolio eventually instead of letting me pick individual loans. And I just really don't like that because you end up with another layer of fees. And over time, I think it just becomes another mortgage REIT, right? It may be a more successful one, but it's still, that's what it is. I think that there's actually a lot of benefit to have a bunch of investors like myself and a bunch of other individuals looking and picking and choosing loans on the back end. I think that that actually probably helps them a little bit with their underwriting when they see, oh, we couldn't sell out of this loan or that loan, where you don't get that when you start to buy them in a whole, as a whole package. I could be wrong. It might not be their goal, but so, those three paid off. I just reinvested the funds. I think I actually might have even mentioned that already in another video. But what the thing that really worried me is when I logged in today, there was a little note in the bottom that said, we don't have very many LROs, so you might want to just invest in the flywheel portfolio. But I looked, and they said, but we will have another batch coming on Wednesday. And then I looked, and they already have a bunch that I hadn't invested in, even though I put money in just a day or two ago. So I'm kind of curious if this batch just came up early or what happened. But so I don't know. It's a little bit worrisome that maybe the site's going to change and that I'm going to have to invest in the flywheel portfolio instead of in individual LROs. I did a video comparing the two, right, and why I might want to do one or the other. But again, just because I pick one strategy over the other, it doesn't mean that's what's right for you. You want to really look at each side of it, do your own due diligence, and maybe that's the same goes for all these platforms, right? Like just because I'm investing in a certain way on here, it's what, based on the knowledge and experience I have investing, I think it's what makes sense for me. I could lose all my money just like anybody else. And so you want to make sure you're digging in, doing your due diligence as well. But yeah, I thought, that's it. Just a quick update, and I just thought that's a little bit strange. It seems like they're just kind of pushing I think, and when the flywheel portfolio came out, the way they announced it made me think that as well, that like maybe they want this to just be their product, right? I mean, I don't know. They haven't come out and said we want to phase out the individual LRO investments. And I really hope they don't, but we'll see what happens with that going forward. I mean, really, all it is I'm losing 1% a year of yield, possibly, as long as I'm able to mimic what they're doing by just buying a little piece of every single one. So I don't know. I don't love it, but just something to look at. And then Landa. So, if you remember, I put money on this site. I did a whole video about this. I put money on. I was looking at properties. I was really excited about a lot of the properties. I like the market that they're in, right? They've got a lot in Atlanta, in the Atlanta area. That's where most of their properties are. They have in some other markets too. But there's a whole bunch of properties I was excited about. But the more I dug into looking at complaints about the platform online, talking to a couple other people who have invested on here, looking at Landa's Discord, I realized like, oh, it seems like they're having a lot of problems. I do keep checking back because I would love it if that turned around and it worked well. One of the things, trading was halted on a bunch of them for a while, and then it seems like none of them are actually paying out dividends. I've been looking every time I come to the platform, I look at, a whole bunch of different properties, and I never find any that show that they're paying out a dividend. Where'd that go? What's happening here? Usually you just scroll down. Oh, maybe I'm missing it on that one, but let me just pull up another one. Yeah, there we go. See, again, no, and this one lost money. Um, and I think it's possible that there are some that are doing better and I'm just missing it. But I've looked at a whole bunch of these on a bunch of different occasions. One of the times I reached out support and asked them, and they said to support, and they said that that it just wasn't updated for the month yet. And I don't know. I mean, maybe I'm early in the month again. Maybe that's what keeps happening, but it doesn't seem like it seems like that would just be really bad luck if that's the case. So anyway, uh, from all the different, third party um, news sources and online complaints and reviews and whatnot, it seems like they're not doing well. Looking at how few dividends there are, I mean, I'm just not going to buy any of these if they don't have a dividend. If they're not able to pay out monthly, it really does seem like they're having problems. But then this is the thing someone pointed out to me today, and when I logged on, it's on every single property, and they just have added a button. I want to buy the entire property. Um, and if you click on this, it just, brings up your email, whatever email you use, it brings up my Outlook with an email to Landa. And it just has that subject line, right? Like it doesn't even pull the property address in there. But that's really worrisome to me that it seems like if so, and I want to remind you, land as their model is different from Lofty, right? These properties aren't like all individually run. It's Landa picks out all the properties, they purchase them, they securitize they create an entity for each one, they sell those, the pieces off, but then Landa does asset management, they collect a fee for that. And so if they're trying to sell off whole properties, it seems like they're basically trying to liquidate them out of their ecosystem. Now, I think it's possible. Like if you remember when we looked at BrickSave, you could buy pieces of properties or you could buy whole properties. But if you bought the whole properties on that platform, it looked like they still like, they were like saying, okay, here's your manager, like it's a turnkey property. But that's not what's happening here. I don't think it's not really clear because all they did is say, I want to buy the whole entire property. But I think if they were trying to keep it and maintain it within their portfolio, they give you a little bit more detail about it, right? I think really what they're doing is trying to just say, hey, look, anybody on our site who's looking at properties, if you just want to buy this from us and take it off our hands, we want to talk about it. And it was super surprising. I mean, I think it definitely, at least from the other investor who pointed this out to me, I think it really gives the impression, both of us thought this, that they're, it's just that much more that they're in trouble, right? And that they're trying to just move these properties. And I thought that was, I'm really glad I had problems getting my money onto their site, because it gave me that a couple extra days to do a little bit more due diligence and realize I wasn't going to buy anything. Because, on the surface level, looking at their properties, a lot of them seem like they're pretty attractive properties. Like their rent to price ratios are good. I like that market that they're in. There was a lot of reasons to think that they would do well, and I think just the execution wasn't there. And again, I mean, maybe they're still going to turn it around. Maybe it's not exactly what it looks like. I don't have any insider info on this. I'm just looking, just from talking to other investors on the Discord, just from looking at all the Better Business Bureau complaints, and then my interactions with support on the site and everything. But it made me pretty glad that I hadn't invested on there. But at the same time, I'm curious, if you're in any of these markets, and you wanted to buy some of these properties, I think that I'd be super curious to actually go through and try to buy one. I don't want to buy something, I live too far away from any of these. I don't, even though I help people invest out of state all the time in my market, um, I don't want to try to, go to a new market just to pick a property up off of here. I'm not, none of these are places that I've ever invested before. Well, you know what? Maybe there's some opportunities here. I should really think about that. Um, I know somebody who runs some properties over here, and maybe it would make sense to try to buy something from Landa. And depending on what I'm curious about is if they're really, if they really need to liquidate, what kind of pricing are they going to be willing to sell at, right? Because I think it's tough to understand. I guess they have loans, um, because land themselves don't own these properties, right? Like it's individual investors, and so they should be just getting fees. But I guess a lot of them, some of them, they didn't sell out completely. Like these ones, you know, they might have. added pressure because they've only sold 26% of it and they're on the hook for the rest at the moment. And I think they did that using bridge loans, based, and that's just based on one article that I read a while back about them. And so they might, they might be having a problem there, but maybe they get some fees for the sales. I'm really curious, like if they're just winding down their business entirely, or what the goal is. But it just makes me think there's got to be some opportunity there, either for somebody, for people to buy some of these, if you're local to them, or maybe we can see about buying some and moving them onto Lofty if we got a co-owner that's in the local area. That's what I think. Maybe some of these Florida ones, there's some opportunity there. Um, I don't know. It was really surprising to see. It is almost like it feels like it's a public admission that they just are trying to get out of the business, which is kind of sad to see. I really want to see all of these fractional real estate investing sites succeed. Um, the more options that we have, the more ways we're going to be able to make money, right? And it's too bad that I think probably depending on how the sales go, I think probably a lot of people are going to end up losing money on their investments in these properties. Um, I know that quite a few people have already. It's not really clear, what their gain or loss is going to be until the properties are actually sold. But it hasn't looked good for a lot of people for a while. Um, that's I think all the updates I wanted to share. Um, you know, I just thought, like I said, it doesn't seem like any of these were worth doing a full video on, but I wanted to talk about all of it, some of these for a while, and some of these are relatively fresh. I'm gonna hopefully go back to just doing a couple, long form due diligence videos, sort of like the one I did yesterday on the New Jersey property. But that's really my goal for the channel, right? Is to share my real estate knowledge and experience, and so mostly I want to talk about that and actually digging into properties. I feel like I get distracted by all the different platforms and all the different ways to do things, and I really am, trying to learn this whole space because I don't think that there's anybody that's looking really hard at fractional real estate investment as a whole. There's a lot of people that are an expert on their own platforms or, that are investing on a couple platforms. And I've met other investors who are investing on a few different ones. Um, but I don't know that there's anybody out there really trying to teach people or share their experience. And obviously, I'm new to all the sites, and so understanding what's going on the sites themselves, might take me a little while. But hopefully, some of the insights I have on the actual real estate side has been helpful. I can't imagine that you would be still sitting here watching the end of one of my videos if not. Uh, I always forget until this point. Please like and subscribe if you haven't already. I am going to be on a larger investors podcast, or larger YouTubers. It's not a podcast, but their YouTube channel coming up in about a week, which is pretty exciting for me. Um, I'd like you to just put some guesses in the comments. Who what channel you think it is. And if there are other real estate YouTubers you think I should try to get to know, I do actually know not a ton, but a few. And I always like sharing ideas and thoughts about a lot of this different stuff. Um, and so, anybody who you think would be interesting for me to talk to, I actually really enjoyed doing that Saul's Lot interview the other day and would like to do more of those. So if you're somebody who has a platform that you'd like me to review or talk about, let me know about that too. Anyway, I think that now I've rambled for way too long. So until next time, I'm going to keep making mistakes so that you don't have to.